Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker. In this podcast, we discussed all the ins and outs of business from the perspective of business owners and entrepreneurs, with the intention to learn and grow from one another and to realize that we are not actually alone in what sometimes feels like a lonely journey. Today, I have the immense pleasure of speaking with Adam Coffey. Adam has had an incredible career that began serving our great country as a humble soldier in the U.S. Army to scaling not one, not two, but three small businesses into empires. He has done nearly 60 acquisitions and billions of dollars in successful exits. In his spare time, he has also managed to write two #1 best-selling books, The Private Equity Playbook and most recently, The Exit Strategy Playbook. This man is the real deal, as real as it gets. I've had the pleasure of speaking on stage with Adam last year in California at Mega Success, and as well as attending his 2-day intensive called Empire Builder in February. Adam, welcome to the show.
Hello, it's good to be here. Hello to all your listeners. I'm pumped. I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We all really appreciate getting to grow and learn from you. After attending Empire Builder, I know that you can speak about so many topics. You were up there like a machine for days on end, hours on end.
I was exhausted by the time it was done.
I bet it was so impressive to watch not only the content, but also just the amount of information that you were able to share with us. But something that really piqued my curiosity was what you spoke about with culture. And I would really love to dive deeper into that on this podcast. As I was preparing for this, I was going through LinkedIn, and you have a quote on there that I really love. You said, when you cannot store your company's product on a shelf, your product is your people. And when your product is your people, culture is everything. So I'd love to know more about where you learned about culture and how you were able to implement it in such a beautiful way.
Well, thank you. So, this is something that I would say I sensed early in my professional career, but it's something that I refined, as the years went by, the decades went by, I got older and more experience as a CEO. And I think for too many business owners, I think we're making a lot of progress in today's world, but it's taken a while. I think it took COVID, it took the pandemic, I think, to kind of accelerate this thought process. But for far too long, people really thought that culture didn't matter, and that the harder I drove people, the more profitable my business would become. And I was one of the early pioneers in figuring out, if you look at all of the companies that I've run and all of the businesses that I've been associated with over the years, these were all services businesses. There was no product, that you could put on a shelf. And that's where that quote came from, quite literally. It's like every company I have run, every empire I have built, the billions of exits, the 58 companies that I bought, every one of them did not have a product you could put on a shelf. And when that is the case, I recognized early on that it took a while to refine my messaging and how I thought about it and taught it. But ultimately, I recognized that, hey, listen, as a CEO in a services type business, I can't manage revenue. I can't manage the company from revenue down. Revenue is an output. It's an output. And at the base level, the early stages of the machine really starts with culture. And my philosophy I developed over time was, listen, if you focus on culture, I don't care what size business you have either. Even if you're a one-person shop, how you portray yourself, to others is certainly important. But if you focus on culture, what you get as a result is an engaged workforce. And that engaged workforce will work hard. Most people who run around in the kinds of companies that I've built and bought over the years, these are blue collar companies. These are people with their names on their shirts. They're skilled, they're laborers, they're building things, they're fixing things. And they generally love what they do, but they want to have a voice. They want to be felt. They want to feel that they're connected with something and potentially understand the greater good of why we're here and what we're trying to accomplish as a business. And when you build and enhance that culture, these people work really, really hard. They take care of customers. Customers like to be taken care of. They give us more stuff. and then revenue rains from the skies. And so I learned, it's like, okay, if I want to make more of this up here, I start with culture. And I learned that profit and culture were not mutually exclusive. If I had a great culture, it doesn't mean I'm not going to make any money. And if I'm making a lot of money, there's no reason why I can't have a great culture. And what I actually learned was that one drives the other. And if you want to maximize the potential of your business, investing in culture, building a culture, it does a lot of things. It's not just about engagement. It helps with employee retention. Sure. It helps you attract talent. And if you look across the board in any industry, any kind of company today, the biggest problem that most businesses are having is attracting and retaining talent. There are companies out there who just can't hire the people that they need. And if they are negligent on culture in today's world, they're really going to struggle. And so my goal and objective was always to kind of create the magnet in an industry. I want to be the lighthouse in a storm. I want to be the place where the best talent wants to come work. I want to be in that kind of company where people bring their friends, they refer their family members. Most, if I look at the companies that I've run, I've had as many as 3 generations of families working side by side,
wow.
in a plant or driving trucks or doing the things that we did. And that's the type of culture I'm looking for. And I learned that if I focus on people and culture, I actually maximize the potential revenue of the business that I'm in. And so I think in today's world, especially with a shortage of workers, in the manufacturing industrial sector, we're short millions of workers as we're seeking to onshore and bring back manufacturing jobs to North America. We're struggling to find the people to work in the factories. It's like, if you want a successful business, you've got to solve the human equation. It starts and ends with culture.
What's really interesting and what came to mind as you were speaking was, and maybe it's just something that's is in our mind because of how a pop culture works, right? It's what's in movies, it's what's in TV, but you'll see it starts off and there are these small ragtag teams of go-getters and they've got this great culture and all this camaraderie. But then as they grow, the culture changes and they start to backstab each other. And I don't know what movie this is coming to mind from, but I feel like it's something
I think it's the movie of life. That smells like a lot of companies I've been around, in the Fortune 500 world.
But here you are having the reverse of that. The companies that you took over had been around for decades. They had a very well-established culture. You came in, you were that inflection point that then changed the growth curve. So, I really have a lot of curiosity around, what did you say to the other executives when you came into these well-established companies to help them get on board to your way of thinking?
When I first came into a company, here's a biblical reference. I call myself John the Baptist. I'm one voice crying out in the wilderness, and I'm eventually that's going to become parallel processed with a number of the team. And, it really starts with communication. So I come into a business, been around for 30, 40 years, whatever that culture is, it exists. It has existed for a long time. Generally speaking, when I get to a company, it was underperforming. And a part of what I'm doing is I'm seeking to turn around. I'm seeking to take something that's been around for 40 years and get it to do something different. And in order to do something different, I start by deconstructing, blowing up that business, going back to the core. This is who we are. This is what I believe. This is the path and the journey that we're going to take. Follow me. And so I start with, I'm the one voice crying out in the wilderness about change and a need to invest and a need to change the dynamic that's been going on and yielding the same outcome over the years. Harder at first, always easy as you start to gain traction. But then, over the decades, I built up kind of a reputation of being a person who truly does this and cares about people and invests in people and does actually create that world-class culture. And so I've also had, I'm going to call them professional groupies, where if I left one company and went to another, they would leave that company and come follow me. I wasn't recruiting them, but they're like, hey, wherever Adam is, that's where I want to be. As an up and coming professional, I want to benefit
outside
from
your windows now.
I'm sorry?
Are they lurking outside your windows now?
Yes, they are. They're hanging out there. So it's an interesting phenomenon. But what I noticed was also, and I think in the early days, again, I'm a person who has held literally every job a person can hold on an org chart. I started at the absolute bottom. A private in the U.S. Army looking up and seeing bubble gum on the bottom of somebody else's shoe. You don't get any lower than that. But even after the military, I mean, I started out as the guy in the truck. I was a service technician working at hospitals, driving around, rural Michigan, working at hospitals in the middle of the night. And I learned early on, hey, I first of all, I interacted with the people around me who did the jobs that I did. As I worked my way up, I always learned that by speaking to people, by listening to people, by including people in what I was doing at whatever level leadership I was, I noticed that I had really good outcomes. In my GE days, I remember when I became a manager for the first time and I put my engineering, proverbial engineering slide rule away and the toolkit away and said, okay, I'm going to be a manager now. GE gave me the worst performing business unit in the country. And it was a turnaround. I became a turnaround guy. But I remembered, as I'm talking to people in the trenches, how, I was a servant leader in the military. We didn't know what servant leaders were back then. But the military has been cranking them out for a couple hundred years. We just finally put a title on it. And so I was always about people, engaging people, showing people the way. Follow me, take the hill, and let me explain why we're doing the crazy things that we're doing and what I'm trying to build. And I always was just very, very successful at getting a business unit that was underperforming in the Fortune 500 world. And literally, my motto with some of these turnarounds was worst to first. Let's take something that is the worst in the country and let's make it the best without wholesale change, without blowing everything up and getting rid of the entire leadership team. I'm going to do it with raw inspiration and articulate a vision and get people to follow me. And then as business units got bigger, as companies got bigger, different tactics came into play, but the original DNA never really changed. I was a guy in a truck. I learned how to resonate with other guys in the truck, and I learned how to build a trust with them. And I noticed that the key to the turnaround was the culture. And if I improved the culture, even with the same workforce, I was getting a different outcome than the previous administration was getting. And so very quickly, I learned there's a correlation here between culture and revenue, culture and attracting talent, culture and retaining talent. And all of these things are germane to producing profits. Sure. And so very quickly, I kind of figured out, okay, if I want to be successful, I need to inspire. If I want to inspire, I have to be authentic. I have to be genuine about it. I can't just treat people like crap, but tell them I'm going to be a caring, great leader. I need to demonstrate that through my actions. And so usually when I'm coming into a company, I'm making visible investments that people can see. So I don't come in and start laying people off and slapping them around because performance isn't what we want. I come in and I start trying to understand the drivers of turnover. Why is it that we don't have the results that we're looking for? And I'm making strategic investments that are highly visible so that the workforce can see, hey, this guy's talking a good game, but I can see it. I can feel it. And before I make any kind of change that might have some kind of a negative reception by certain people, let me give them 3 or 4 wins so they can see that there's a balance, that there's a new attitude, and there's a new sheriff in town. And the way that this person is going about this also includes improving my life, improving the way that this business is functioning. He's holding people accountable. He's making promises. He's keeping those promises. And then, hey, when you have to make a change and it might be a negative impact, it's like, 4 positive, 1 negative. It's like, I get it. I see it. And I explain those. And so you build up momentum very slowly. But I'll give you a couple statistics. I went into one company as a CEO. When I got there, employee turnover was 42% a year. We're talking 42% of that workforce was walking out the door every year. I didn't have an HR department. I had a recruiting department that was doing nothing but trying to keep butts in seats and and people and vehicles and trying to get work done because 40% of our workforce was leaving. And so we immediately started addressing, and trying to understand what was the cause of the turnover. And within 12 months, we reduced it by more than 50%. And it was a trades-based business, and turnover in trades-based businesses are high to begin with because there's a shortage of tradespeople and there's other companies throwing money at your employees left and right. So we focused on what were the drivers. They were different in every market, and we addressed those drivers, and we let people know we were addressing those drivers. And just very quickly, everything just like, no need to go. This person gets it. I love it. He's building something that's uniquely different, and I want to be a part of that. And
that's a really good point for business owners to hear, that it took 12 months. It can take 18 months. It could take 24 months. I mean, this isn't a fast, flick of a switch sort of thing to all of a sudden have a great culture.
You have to be authentic, and you have to be committed to the journey. So I'm committed to creating the shareholder value that a set of shareholders are looking for when I'm a CEO. I'm committed to that. How I go about that, though, is where I need my own unique set of latitudes, because it may be non-conventional to some, but now that I have a track record, people get it. Okay, Adam's going to come in, he's going to start investing first. And, we're going to see that turnaround. And when it happens, it happens, and it's sustainable. And that's really the thing. When you're running a business and you're bending the growth curve, it's all about wanting to create sustainable growth. And I want to create healthy profits in a business, because a healthy and a profitable business can invest in itself, invest in its people. And it's that growth that creates opportunity for employee advancement. But in order to get there, I can't just come in and sprinkle a magic wand and make it happen. It is a journey. Normally I'm running companies for private equity, and it's a typical 5-year hold period. And so, year one's a lot of investing. Year two, you're seeing the change in the growth curve. And then I start to get momentum. Culture is like a train leaving the station. It starts moving very, very slowly. The wheels start turning very slowly, but then eventually it starts to pick up steam. And then it feeds upon itself. I remember, during the pandemic, I had 3,000 employees, and I'd be doing, roundtables, and we're all virtual or working from home, or the people in the trucks are still out on the job sites. But, it was a different world. I was holding regular town halls. I would get more than 1,000 employees tuning in to a town hall. People wanted to be connected. They wanted to understand what was going on. And then a piece of that culture building is also transparency. It's not about money. It's not about spoiling people. It's about creating a shared vision, articulating that shared vision, making some investments that are strategic, that they can see, that add value. But it's also about results. It's not about let's do yoga at lunch and let's have free this or free that, like we see in the news in some of these tech companies that are now laying off people by the tens of thousands. We have to have sustainable growth. There needs to be accountability to all of our actions. However, with those, I'm also going to make huge investments in people and culture. I'm going to teach people, train people, and slowly we pick up that steam. And then it becomes kind of a juggernaut that can't be stopped. Just like failure, sometimes when companies get in kind of a death spiral and it's hard to pull up and make it stop, success can be that way too. Once you get the momentum going, it seems like success just keeps on happening. The pace of success picks up, and what you build becomes very special.
Well, I have an engineering background as well, that we share in common. And I love to use, physics, universal laws to help explain things to people, because I find it fascinating that what is true that we see in physics is also true with people. That overcoming that inertia and getting that momentum going is really incredible. But the other thing that I know about engineers is not known for having inspiring vision and being able to articulate it.
Well, so Call me, let's see. If I go back to, my roots and my DNA, my grandmother, let's start with her. She was a vaudeville entertainer during Prohibition in Chicago. She was a
She sounds
vaudeville
amazing.
dancer and singer up on stage in Al Capone's, speakeasies, back in the day. My dad was in a Fortune 500 company in an executive position as in sales and marketing, so could always articulate. Hell, I was a class clown, as a kid. I didn't know when to shut up. And, I tell people jokingly, I was a smart ass. And when I went in the army, smacked the ass out. I was a smart person, but, it's like they helped shape me and kind of set the stage for my future by teaching me about leadership discipline and teamwork and accountability. I learned those things early on in life, and they became a great foundation to build the rest of my career on. But I'll tell you that inspiring people and being engaging is something that people can learn. And, one of my mentors early in my career, made a comment to me that I took to heart. And it's like, you want to learn about public speaking, go to church. Go to Alabama when it's 100 degrees out in the summer and listen to a Southern Baptist minister preach while he's swinging his big old sword and he's talking for 3 hours about the gospel. And it's like, boy, you can learn how to speak. You can learn how to inspire. I used to teach this, and I would use clips from two people who in my lifetime I thought were the most inspiring speakers that I had heard. And I chose them on purpose to be of opposite spectrums. So I had Ronald Reagan, who was president of the United States, a conservative Republican, and I picked Barack Obama, who was a Democrat, first Black president. But these were two people who could literally inspire a nation. And when I teach this, I most people have a closer reference to Barack Obama because he was more recent. You have to be older like me to remember Ronald Reagan. But I tell them, what did Barack Obama sell us?
He was selling hope.
He sold us hope.
Yeah.
What the hell is hope? You can't put hope in a box. Bing, bing, bing. Just like the services businesses, I don't have a product I put on a shelf. What am I selling? I'm selling hope. I'm selling a dream. I'm articulating a vision, and I'm recognizing that my product is people. And so you can learn how to be a messenger, an authentic messenger, and believe this stuff. People used to tell me, Adam, how can you be so passionate about an HVAC company? How can you be so passionate about a laundry company, $1 billion commercial laundry company? It's like, I'm not passionate about laundry. Nobody on the planet likes to do laundry. We all hate doing laundry. However, I'm passionate about people, and I'm passionate about the journey of building something special in any industry. We happen to work in a laundry room, or we happen to fix HVAC or refrigeration or install it. It's like, it's not about what we do. It's about the journey. It's about building something special so that whoever we are, whatever kind of company we're running in whatever industry it happens to be, we are the magnetic north of that industry. We are the place where people want to come. We're the magnet. We attract the talent. We keep talent. We create this environment that fosters success. And that's what inspires me is that journey. It's not the product or the service I'm providing. It's the people that I'm enabling and helping through culture. And as an out product of that, the output of that is, give me a great culture, I'll give you great shareholder returns.
Which is something everyone wants, right? That's why.
And I think there's a lot of people waking up to that now. And they're like, oh my God, how do I retain employees? I have to pretend I care. And what about employees do we know? They're a whole lot smarter than executives think they are, in some cases. And it's like, we better be authentic, and we better truly walk the walk and reinforce our verbal communications with actions, because people can very easily see when there's a hollowness to a culture where we say all the right things and we never do the right things. And we go right back to focusing on, I need more, from less. And it's like, boy, when you build a great, strong culture, you don't have to worry about growth. You don't have to worry about revenue. All that stuff just kind of takes care of itself.
Right.
You need to inspire people.
No, and I completely can relate to that. As I started out my career in engineering, I was in manufacturing and I was doing health and safety and environmental audits. And so when I go into these
Oh, that sounds exciting.
right? I go into these new facilities and sometimes talking to the plant manager or, the production manager, maintenance manager wasn't the right place. Like I needed to go find the guy that's been there, 30 years. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He's the one that's really going to be able to tell me what I needed to know for that. But it's about trusting in those people and giving them the chance to speak, because most of the time those people don't feel like they have a voice.
Right. And so I recognize that we're all created equal. Titles are used to separate our duties and organize our efforts. But you know what? The person in the plant who's the janitor, it brings as much to the table as the CEO does. And it's like we need to treat people like human beings. In the entire 21 years I was a CEO, I've moved on to other things now. I now want to help multiple companies at a time. So I do that through my consulting work. But as I was learning and developing as an individual, it was always, just so it seemed so easy to me, yet it appeared to be so complicated to others. And it just very quickly learned that, if I really do care about people and I make a difference in their lives, they work hard. And when they work hard, they produce. And all of these things that shareholders need and investors need, they just seem to take care of themselves, and it becomes very easy to sustain. I also call myself a lazy workaholic. And if I build a great company, there's really nothing for me to do because the company takes care of itself. I hire great people. I try to hire people who think like I do. But in the 21 years I was a CEO, here's a fact. No one has ever heard me give an ass chewing to any human being. It's counterproductive. I have this one unique stat. As a CEO, there are times in a career where you have to let people go, and you have to make changes to an organization's leadership team. Maybe many times it's because I'm growing so fast, I'm outgrowing the skill set or capability, and I'll try to learn, or try to educate and try to bring people along. But there's just times sometimes where you need to make changes or things happen. But I have this unique thing in that even people that I have had to fire in my career are still friends with me. They still follow me on LinkedIn. They still like things that I'm doing, and they call me, and I'm still a reference for them. If I have to impact someone's life in a negative way, I take that personally. It's like I want to make sure, if I'm kicking someone off the train, I got to make sure they got a really big pillow strapped to their butt, so when they hit the ground, they aren't hurt. I try to help them find a job or fix whatever it was that needed to be fixed. I care about people. That's genuine. And so, I've never had to tear a person down or apart, in any kind of setting in order to make my point, or in order to manage the business. And I think fundamentally, one of the things that I teach also about leadership is you're not allowed as a leader to have a bad day. You're just not allowed. When I think about culture, why do people leave companies? They seldom leave because of money. They leave because they hate their boss. Right. And once they decide to leave, then they use money as a litmus test. Hey, I make X, so I need X plus 10% or 20% to justify my move. But they never were don't care. Where they care is, I don't like my boss. And I think a lot of companies also fail. So entrepreneurs out there, as you're getting bigger, as you're adding people, what happens? Well, so if I've got 20 service technicians as an example, who becomes the first service manager? Well, it's probably my best tech. Great. Right. They were your best tech. They just became a manager. Did you spend any time, effort, or money teaching them how to lead people? Because people are your product. Now you've got someone between you and the people. You're still the articulating of the vision, and you're the culture leader, but there's now a layer of management down there. And if they're not performing well, you're going to start losing people because they're not prepared. And so I would require in the companies that I ran, even when I was at GE had this thing called Crotonville. They have a college, campus where they are teaching people how to lead and inspire and teaching numbers and managerial finance and all these things. It's like the world's most exclusive MBA that wasn't an MBA at the time. But many companies can't afford to have any kind of internal training like that, small businesses. But, I used to send people to a Dale Carnegie course on leadership. And if I'm remembering right, this is a while back, it was like $1,500. And it was like an 8-week course, and they went 2 nights a week. But if you wanted to be a supervisor in a company I'm running, first-time supervisor, is mandatory that you complete this training, because now you're going to be managing my product and I have to teach you how to lead people. And that's a different skill set.
You think about it, $1,500 a person for what they're going to, be able to produce is nothing. It's peanuts compared to, the potential.
To the damage a bad leader could do, because they cause people to leave. So, culture has to exist at every level. As a CEO or a founder, you certainly set the tone, but you have to make sure that at every level of leadership that tone is replicated. And you know what, if you encounter those people that are just toxic to your culture or aren't going to get the message, then no matter how productive they are, you need to move them out. You need to get, people need to buy in. They need to believe and understand that how we treat people is going to directly impact our profits. It doesn't mean we coddle them. That doesn't mean we give them everything for nothing. Everything's free. We're going to hold them accountable, but we're going to take care of them and hold them accountable.
I mean, I think at the core, everyone wants to work hard and do a good job and have pride in what they do and how they spend their time, because I think that's so much of the human condition is looking for, what is our purpose in life? Why are we here? How do we answer that question? And I had worked with someone who said they loved the work that they did, but they hated their job. They hated how they had to do the work. And it's a direct correlation to culture, and how can you make the work and the job simultaneously be a pleasurable experience?
Sure. Some jobs are harder than others. Some jobs don't require a lot of physical effort. Others are more mental than physical. But I think anybody who does any job long enough at some level loses the love for the work. But if they lose the love of the environment, they're going to be gone long before they lose the love of the work. And for people who want to change, that's what promotions do. That's what new opportunities do, is they reinvigorate some people. And I always tell people, it's like, boy, I need that service technician, the guy who's going to spend 30 years in a truck. God bless them, if they can do that, because I need them. They're the journeymen who will teach the next generation of tradespeople how to do the job that they do. But I also need the young person who decides, I don't want to spend my life in a truck. I want to become a service manager. I don't want to be on call nights and weekends. I want to have a more predictable life. I'm going to get into management. And then I want to aspire to be a service manager, a branch manager, a regional manager, a vice president of operations. I want to be a CEO someday. And in this country, you can still do that. I'm proof of that. I was the guy in the truck, and I held every job you could hold. And there are people, when I was the guy in the truck, who are still there, and they're still in the truck. And again, bless them. They're not of less value than I am. I climbed the corporate ladder. They stayed put. But it takes both of us to run and make the company work. So I think, we have to recognize that because we have a title, or there's a C in front of our name or title after our name, it doesn't mean we're better than other people. It gives us more responsibility to those people. And we have a greater responsibility to be a good steward to the people in the trenches. And culture is something we build, and it's a way we demonstrate our care and commitment for people.
I mean, it's just like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Absolutely. And not everybody does that, right? Not every company has a great culture. And even in the best of times, when you're striving to have a great culture, if you have thousands of employees, you're going to have people who don't believe it, don't buy into it, or are bad actors. And, you're going to have to find them and kill them and get them out of your organization rather than promote a problem. It's like, we need to make that someone else's problem, but so I really believe at the top, I have to set the tone, I have to set the direction, but then I need to teach, and I need to raise the bar on what I expect of the leadership that's going to manage the people who, in essence, are the product. And then I'm going to walk in their shoes and get to know those people in the trenches and make sure that their experience that they're feeling is the experience I'm trying to create and build.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. I hope that all the CEOs out there can hear this message and understand what it can mean for them in their bottom line, that you can do the right thing and make money at the same time. And here's proof positive of how it can be done. And you would lay out a roadmap for them. Like it's right here. All they have to do is follow it.
Well, you know what? It's like you can make billions and take care of people. That's the magic. Do both of those, and once you learn that magic, you'll be a believer forever. So thank you for having me around. I appreciate that. I hope people out there get inspired.
I'm sure there will. So for our listeners, thank you so much for being here. If you liked this podcast, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time.